You can.
And I mean,
Yeah. You can preset, but you can also manually say-
I got excited. Like, what do you? Because I got.
Mayor, we're on YouTube right now.
So it's all part of the same farce.
Yeah.
But can you look at, that's.
All right.
Is that?
We will begin tonight's meeting. Welcome to the North Logan City Council meeting for February 7th, 2024. It looks like we have 100% attendance. We'll begin tonight with a pledge by Mark Cansey and a prayer by Kenny.
I'm getting good at this.
You say me for the prayer.
Yeah.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to please bless us in this city council meeting this evening, that we can be guided to know of the decisions that are to be made that are in the best interest of our community. And please help us to be thoughtful in our approach to things and to consider all sides of the issues at hand. And please guide us that we'll be able to consider the issues thoroughly and again, to make decisions that are in the best interest of our community. We're so grateful to thee to be able to live in such a wonderful area with such wonderful capable residents, and we're grateful for the moisture that we received this week also. We say this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, thanks, you too. I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And then we have some meeting minutes from January 3rd for approval. I know that Kenny, you submitted some changes on that one, right?
Just the one clarification that I think Marie did incorporate, although I didn't see her updates.
Okay. Any other input on that or edits? Okay, then I would entertain that motion.
I'll move that we accept the meeting minutes from January 3rd with the one amendment that I suggested.
Okay, motion by Kenny,
I'll second.
second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Alan, will you take us through follow-up and review of action items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Coming down through these, we'll talk pretty extensively about the Civic Center later on in the meeting, so I won't go over that at length. We are coming up on Employee Appreciation Month with it, which is March. We'll have a pretty heavy HR focus during that month. The number of things for both the city council, mayor, the staff throughout the entire organization. Jumping down through these other items, we'll talk about some water related items. We are hopeful that on the next city council, there will be a probably lengthier discussion regarding the water model and water master plan and a proposed kind of mini capital improvement plan, I would call it, for the next 10 to 20 years on that meeting. And so they're wrapping that up. It should be, we were expecting it yesterday. It should come by tomorrow, I'm anticipating, and then we'll send that out to the city council mayor and start reviewing that in anticipation of a long discussion at that meeting coming up. It's such a, I mean, that document really drives a lot of the things that happen in the city related to water. So I went over that at length, but jumping down through here, sewer, again, we're updating the water master plan, similar item. Those are specific trunk lines throughout the city that we're planning. So they tie into future updates throughout the city, along with our trunk line that we're working on with Logan, which goes to the sewage treatment lagoons and the mechanical treatment plant now. Streets, again, heavy on snow maintenance and removal, but they're also lining up all of the surface treatments for this year, which you'll see in their budget presentation, which is coming up. They're also, I mean, hats off to the streets department. They're coming over and they're also helping out with in between fixing vehicles. They'll come over and they'll help scan items for subdivisions. So we have 50 years of subdivision records and they're scanning them into a digital system. So we have that digitized. So they're helping out in any way they can. So that's up to them. Along with Stormwater, they're doing the same thing. Engineering, we're talking about the 2500 North 8th East roundabout. We did receive additional funding for that. Because of the inflationary increases, that the costs for that roundabout have gone up, but luckily, thanks to the mayor and the other individuals involved, we did secure additional funding for that roundabout. And we'll probably go out to bid on that for this later this summer. They're still finalizing some of the designs to go out to property acquisition though, as it relates. It's very minimal though, as far as property acquisition as to where it was 6 months ago or a year ago. Very minimal. Going through these 6 East COG, another project that'll be coming up. 200 East is another project that they're designing. Parks, they are preparing their budget. They're doing that because they have the RAPS application that's coming up in the coming weeks. I think this is the last year of the agreement for our RAPS projects where they were tied to the BOR lands at the high school. So we wrapped up everything at the high school. We're now working on wrapping up everything that's part of that agreement for Elkridge, and that will be the end of like a 7 to 8 year agreement, I believe so. And that'll wrap up hopefully this next year. But that will be our RAPS application for Elkridge East improvements. Trails, we had a meeting today with both Hyde Park and Smithfield, which is just fantastic. Working with them on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, it has been very refreshing. North Logan's kind of just tried to bite that off over the years. Hyde Park has really gone gung-ho recently. And so wrapping those 3 communities in together, because the trails don't end at the community boundaries, and trying to work on that together, I think it'll be much more advantageous to get that done and much more likely in the coming years.
And the representation from the state is that will be kind of a model for other communities in how you can have a multi-city and county collaboration. So it's great news.
Yes, and then Canal Trails, we're just working on education sheets. And then a template for individuals who would like to designate their property as easements along those canals. Recreation, there's a number of things taking place with recreation, but they believe it or not are gearing up for spring soccer registration. Their murder mystery, I think, is this weekend, but that's full. That'll be a cool new event that they're put together. Jumping down through here, cemetery, they're working very hard on doing some designs. They need some direction budgetarily. And what they're doing is they're lining up all their capital improvement plans so they can start designating what they'll be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. They have a number of burial operations. Sorry, they have more burials than they used to have when we started. Our cemetery is relatively young, started in 2008, and we used to average about 1 per month. Now it's about 1 per week. And as we keep gearing up and having more burials, we need to have more items on site to be able to handle that workload. And it's trying to get ahead of that curve. And so you'll see designs for Veterans Monument, probably a design for a restroom on site at the cemetery, those types of things. But we'll gear up and have all those capital plans laid out so that we can take one on a year for the next several years. Jumping down through here, community development, they're always extremely busy. We had our general plan meeting, thanks to Scott and the contractor for putting those together. It was very well attended, and the residents brought fantastic feedback throughout the community to that open house regarding our general plan rewrite. We're working now, Scott's working very heavily on getting a program, a digital program to track our subdivisions because of the SB 174 requirements. We have to go through a 4-step review process that we cannot go over. And so we're trying to track that digitally now. But then we're going to try and wrap everything into that. So public works inspections, business licensing, everything we can, dog licensing into one digital program. So Scott's lining a lot of that up for us. Jumping down through economic development, you'll probably see something regarding Rush Funplex and that subdivision in the coming weeks, which will probably kick off a number of different subdivisions. We're working with UDOT right now for that access on 2850. We've submitted that application. 2850, their access to Maine, just so people know what I'm talking about. You have to apply and go through a process. to do that. Coming down through, like I mentioned, coming up, we do have the Employee Appreciation Month. Scott's put together all the budget, kind of templates for each of the departments. They'll go through and they'll update that in the coming weeks. You'll probably have 3 or 4 at the next meeting, discussion items regarding 3 or 4 of the budgets. Library, they have a number of new programs. So if you get a chance going through the newsletter, you'll want to look through that. They do have a number of new programs that Trent worked together with the staff to put together. Everything from a financial training and planning to just about anything you can imagine. The big event coming up is the Regency Ball. I think the 14th is the last day that people can sign up for that. I think they indicated that today. So there is a deadline. So if you're going to the Regency Ball, that's the Jane Austen Regency Ball at the Riverwoods, that the last day is the 14th of this month to sign up for that. Police, they have their new officers. We'll go over a few things. They're helping out with some code enforcement. They've really geared up in a lot of their parking enforcement, their winter parking enforcement. So thanks to them for doing that. Fire department, there's a number of things coming up as there are new buildings coming online. But they're also wrapping up the study in the next, I'd say, few weeks. What is the actual acronym, Chief, regarding the insurance premiums, basically your study? The ISO survey. 29th of February. So he'll keep us in the loop. They're working through that, but that does have a potential. We've gone over this, but it has far-reaching implications for this city in a very positive way. Their extremely fast response times and their training enables each of the residents of the community to potentially have lower insurance rates, homeowners insurance rates. So just going through those items, and then obviously the tours, the news station coming online, and Chief can probably go through that later on in the meeting. So I skipped through several of those. If there's other questions or specific things I brushed over.
Okay, thanks, Alan. You know what, as you were talking, I'm realizing that I don't know that we explicitly approved the LBA minutes from the January 3rd.
You're
So
right.
I think we better do that at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess I made the motion on the city council minutes. I would approve, or I would make a motion that we would approve the minutes, the January 3rd LBA minutes as presented.
Okay, motion by Kenny,
Second.
second by Buzzy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Alan, for that. Any questions for Alan on any of those issues? Okay, then if not, we'll move on to recognition of an exemplary staff member. Just as a preface to this, the chief nominated our Employee Leadership Award recipient tonight, and we're so thrilled to present this to Officer Nelson. They've just been exceeding all of our expectations, especially in the last several months. So we're just so appreciative, but I will read his submission. On Sunday, February 4th, 2024, Officer AJ Nelson responded to a medical overdose in Hyde Park at 2:50 a.m. It was reported to dispatch that a female victim had possibly overdosed on fentanyl. Officer Nelson responded and arrived at 2:56 a.m., 6 minutes after being dispatched. Officer Nelson retrieved his Narcan nasal spray from the back of his patrol car, ran up and entered the residence. Once inside, Officer Nelson was directed to the master bedroom where he saw a woman lying on the floor making gurgling noises. Officer Nelson quickly administered the Narcan spray and checked for breathing. He did not observe the victim breathing and immediately began life-saving chest compressions. Within a few compressions, Officer Nelson heard the victim make gurgling sounds as she attempted to breathe. Seeing that the first dose had proved ineffective, Officer Nelson ran back to his patrol car to receive a second dose of Narcan, quickly ran back inside the home, and then administered another dose to the victim. Only after turning over care of the victim to emergency medical personnel did Officer Nelson inquire as to the possibility of additional fentanyl in the home that might prove harmful to himself or other first responders. Without question, Officer Nelson's quick and decisive action during this incident ultimately led to her survival. We're grateful to have Officer Nelson on patrol in North Logan and Hyde Park cities. I'll add to that that we're in such good hands, and you know, we get these stories probably more frequently than other communities, and we're so grateful to Officer Nelson and his quick and and his quick response, and then also just not even thinking of himself. So he's here today. If you wouldn't mind standing, and let's give you a hand of applause. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll excuse anyone who wants to leave after this point. And we'll move on to our action items. The first of which is to consider a resolution to approve a city private policy. Is it privacy policy statement? Okay, to conform with Utah Code 63D-2-103. Scott, are you going to talk to us about this one?
So I'm surprising Scott with this right now.
That's the best way to do it. Tell us your thoughts.
Okay. If you pull up the resolution. We decided to go by resolution just because of the legislative effect in Utah code. We just wanted to make sure we did it as best way possible. And I did look at several cities that had done privacy policies, and a lot of them were patterned after the state of Utah privacy policy. And the additional pages just show what seems to fit our city the best. And that's why I chose those. And
So are we
Thank you.
choosing between those two?
you can choose between the one that Nibley did or
Enoch?
then there's several other cities, including Enoch, and Enoch really kind of condensed it down to just the city's needs, not a Utah's needs. So
Okay. Do we need to choose that tonight when we adopt this resolution?
You could probably choose the one that he's copied and pasted into here. It's kind of a compilation.
Okay.
so if you want to go with that version 1.0.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for Scott on this from the council?
Yeah, I have just one technology related I wanted to ask about. Scott, do we receive payments? Do we collect payments on any type of debit card or credit card at the city offices today? Do we use, is it connected to computer? Is it a phone line connection with a credit card reader? Do you know?
Well, the credit card reader, it's through a VoIP.
Okay,
And then we do have the online payment portals for the rec and things like that.
so do we have to survey every year for that for compliance? That was my question I had.
Because it's a merchant account.
Okay. So it doesn't need to be covered here is what you're saying. That was my question. Okay,
Mhm.
thanks, Scott.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay.
Just, Scott, you looked at this one of the requirements that are in 103. I assume that the reference to the city administrator is what you're calling the website operator. Because there's a reference in
Oh,
103 2A that just 2A1 that requires to identify the governmental website operator.
and well, maybe I missed something, but down at the very end, it does have the webmaster, who currently is me.
And I get that. I just wonder if we gotta look at the statute, just because you use the other terms that this statute uses. And
Mhm.
want to define that.
Okay,
You kind of follow the order of the statute other than
Right.
that one item.
okay.
Do you have to be notarized? You know that? No.
Okay, do we need to make that an amendment to this? The identification of the website administrator? Is that what it's called?
It's the governmental website operator is the term in the statute.
Okay.
You have an address and a way to contact them.
You just change that wording in the amendment.
Yeah, I think if you just make that minor adjustment, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion on that.
I'll move we adopt the resolution approving a privacy policy statement as amended contained in the resolution.
Okay, motion by Mark. Any discussion on this?
Do you have to say city private or is that okay? Policy statement. It's supposed to be privacy.
The agenda.
Second, I will
Okay.
second the motion.
Second by Emily, all in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Move on to consider the authorization of the estimated market value of the city offices located at 2076 North, 1200 East as determined by the city recorder in preparation of the city's request for sealed bids for the purchase of the city office. Alan, you want to take us through this?
Yeah, I can go over this just briefly. Well, let's just zoom over there. Everyone knows where the current city offices are. But what we're doing with this is we're going through, we updated these steps a few years ago. Because they were severely outdated. They did not meet state code. They did originally, which is why we had a provision in here that said we had to offer the property back to the original owner of the property. That was very awkward. I had to send 3 or 4 letters to the last known address of several people who had been deceased for 50 to 80 years. It was very awkward with some of these things. So we updated this according to state code and several other cities codes. But there's a lengthy process for the disposal of real property. And so both the procedures and the disposal of real property, these provisions within our code are applicable. So we already went through, the city council declared the city offices as surplus, which then goes to the next step, which is determining a rough or approximate value based off of I'd call it a quick appraisal done by the recorder based off of comps within the area within a certain radius. All this is doing, this doesn't determine the value that we will or won't accept. It's just a rough estimate in the process. So Scott's done that. He's gone through and basically has several properties that he's taken into consideration. And he's come up with, if you look right here, this column right here, the value of the city office, the low would be 487, the average would be 601, and the high would be 651. So it's really up to the city council. All you're doing is just setting a rough estimate as to what you think some of these bids would come back in as. And once you've determined that, the city council will go out to a sealed bid process where we will request for 3 weeks that people submit a sealed bid for the purchase of this property. And then at that point, it would come back before the city council for approval as to which bid you opt to go with at that time. So really tonight, what you're doing is really determining out of those 3 he just gave you, what rough approximate value you'd like to determine before it goes out to bid on the open market. Again, sealed bids, they'd have to come in sealed.
So is that average number simply just the average of which column? Exactly, the,
Average of all of these different properties that he looked at.
okay,
the number right there.
These.
If you look at the cash county.
okay.
Are any of those commercial properties? Okay,
Probably not.
but they're residential? Okay. Okay,
That's the tough part about where our city offices
Right.
are located.
is it? That's its classification?
Love
Is that just
that.
a spot zone right there? Remind me, is it?
It's kind of spot zone. Let me look up the zoning.
Sorry.
Buzz brings up a good point.
It's something weird.
Say,
Yeah, that's what I remember too. what we were
It's
gonna-
not really
it's not
spot
like it's
zone.
related to this,
The
but-
most of the city though that
But it
was
is.
installed
Yeah.
before 1970 or 80 is retroactively zoned. So they came in and they designated zones for most of the areas throughout the city. Trying to get a rough idea of what
Oh,
it
okay,
was
so it is-
or what the composition of each subdivision looked like. So it's community commercial, which is a very unique zone. I think there's only 1 or 2 or 3 zones like that. So obviously this complex where the school district offices are, the fire station, city offices. I think there's 1 or 2 on the south end of the city that are still community commercial. It is a very old zone.
So what, I'm assuming it would have to change once the property changes hands, is that, or can it stay the same?
It can stay the same if they come in and operate a professional office. And it's kind of like general commercial, only a little bit more strict for this property than general commercial. The city cannot rezone it though before selling it. If we
Okay.
want to sell it, if you want to go out to the market and sell it, you can't rezone it, get a ton of money out of it for what you want to rezone it. That's just the illegal aspect of this. However, if someone does buy it and they come in, there's nothing in state code or city code that says that they can't come in and request a zoning change after they have bought.
After the
property.
purchase.
But obviously, that's a risk that they would have to take because the city council at that time or the planning commission could say, no, we do not want to consider a rezone. So. that's just
But they
part of the
would have to
process.
stay as in like an office building if they wanted to operate a business. Am I understanding that? Or could they change the type of business? Like what
They
is?
could change the type of business. There's
What-
probably an array of
What's in the,
business.
what's the ordinance allow? What are the?
I'm not sure.
community
Scott might know,
commercial?
but I just know it's slightly more strict than general commercial.
But less strict than residential, which is surrounded by that.
It doesn't allow for residential on the property, but
It does for condos.
It just makes it tricky when you like in the valuation, right? Because
Yes.
it's really the value is going to be what its future use could be.
Mhm.
So I think that's what makes this hard.
So when it comes to the classification of a condominiumized fourplex, it's because there's actually 4 parcels on this piece of property. And so technically it has 4 legal descriptions and somebody could purchase each legal description separately or sell them separately if they really wanted to.
Oh my,
It is,
There's 4
There's
units. in the
5, yeah.
building Plus the one.
the land.
yes.
yep,
Plus
We have
the common area, or what is that?
Yeah, what's
Yeah,
the,
an unbuilt on
Oh,
parcel.
I really
Non-buildable parking.
love this. I think this is working.
We have no idea and we will advertise it as one property. We're
Yeah.
allowed to advertise it.
There should be a plat on it. You open up. a
There
plat.
is, yeah, there's a plat on it. Community commercial is quite a bit pared down from general commercial, so it's not
Right.
gonna be like a Walmart or some big box retail like general commercial allows for, but it's more of a smaller, older commercial, so there's, assisted living, skilled nursing, church, post office, some of those smaller types of institutional commercial uses.
It looks like when it was the medical offices, they subdivided it into several sub units,
Mm.
condominiumized it.
So if somebody wanted to buy this and then put, multiple tenants in there with businesses, they would have to show us their business license and we'd verify that their business use would match the zoning for community commercial before we'd allow them to have that business license. So unique for sure.
But not to get into the weeds, I wouldn't stress too much about the value you
Right.
determine. The value will be determined by the sealed bids. when They come in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good questions for the process when it does.
yeah,
Determining
Yeah.
what the uses can be is very important because those are questions that will come into the city regarding what can they do with the property. Again, though, I'm just guessing, you will have someone that will probably come in and want to buy this and then bulldoze it and probably come in with something else. I've had 4 or 5 people reach out to me. That's one of the people that have reached out to me. The option that they want to do is bulldoze it and build something. I don't know what on the property, most likely a residential, but I indicated to them that it is not zoned for that right now. The other individuals wanted to just take the building and modify it and use it for something similar to its current use.
So Alan, we're looking at the valuation of that entire parcel.
Yes, everything
Including the
in this whole
buildings.
subdivision.
Scott, do you know, in your comps, I know they were all fourplexes, roughly the same age and condition as what we're looking at here.
And they were all residential uses. We don't have any commercial use analysis in there. There is a professional office just east of Walmart that has some professional business, which lays out similar to this. I wonder if we should look at that.
Again, though, back to the point where.
I know, that makes
it's
help us.
determining- and
yeah,
it's only a
so,
1
As you're
mile
actually
radius.
so tonight, do we just choose a number?
Yep,
So I think we have enough information to choose that number. It's really kind of, I think, tantamount to a listing price almost. But ultimately, we're gonna get the bids that we get, like the market will determine the price. So does anyone want to take
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll take a crack at it.
Okay.
Mayor. So motion for the council to authorize the estimated market value is outlined on the value sheet.
do we need to choose one of those three?
Is it,
Low,
can
average,
we,
high?
can we,
You'd probably choose one of those three.
so we'll just
Okay.
average, I assume, okay, so
That's good.
motion authorize the estimated market value for the average listed price of $601,163.85 for the city offices located at 2076 North, 1200 East, as determined by the city recorder.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second,
Motion by Buzzy, second by Emily. Any discussion? Okay, all in
Yes,
favor?
Sorry, I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
gonna, one point, I mean, those buildings aren't in the best of condition. So does that affect?
I
we-
don't think it matters if we're overshooting this, then the bids will come in
Yeah.
reflecting that.
Okay,
And I think the value really is in just the location and actually the zoning, like the fact that there's commercial zoning, even if it's community commercial,
Mhm.
it's limited.
you're still, I think that's a pretty valuable spot right there. So I don't think we're closing any doors. I think this is just a step towards listing it.
Well,
Or
they'll get
getting an
their own
RFP out.
comps
Yeah, that's
If they put that bid in. so.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a motion by Buzzy, a second by Emily. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, Jordan, can you walk us through these next two work session items? We'll first talk about proposed culinary tiered water rates for subdivisions or developments that were modeled or approved with the understanding that secondary water would be used for exterior watering needs. We know where this one comes from. Let's title it based on the community that we're
There it
talking
goes.
about.
Will you pull up let's go to the Word doc first. So this was one of the goals we set back when we attended the Grow Smarter workshop, I think is what it's called. Scott's not paying attention. I think that's what it's called. So one of the things that we wanted to look into was the effect of secondary water users switching to our culinary water system in the summer months or in the spring months, just not utilizing the secondary water which they were approved to use. So this probably started 10 years ago where we really started to press it, but it's also been happening for quite a while.
Or like, I'd say 6 or 7, 6 years
6 or
ago.
7 years. So as you guys have noticed on the Council and Planning Commission over the last year, the subdivisions you've seen come through, they've all been approved with the understanding that they must use secondary water on their landscaping. So what we've been doing is we found that there's a lot of people inside of those subdivisions that choose not to do it, or the HOA chooses that the water's too dirty for them to use. They just don't want to deal with the headache. And so one of the goals that came from our Grow Smart workshop was to see if we can help to encourage those people that are in those subdivisions to stick to using secondary water. Last year, we went through quite a bit of public outreach. We had our water department go through and identify some of the buildings that were not tied to the secondary water, which they were supposed to use. And we actually notified a bunch of them, sent them letters, and we had a lot of people change last year back to secondary water. Some of them were just not aware that that's what they were supposed to be doing, that that's what their subdivision was approved of. So we did have a lot of people go back to secondary. So this problem has been kind of shrunk down a little bit. On single family home developments. If you scroll down a little bit, one of the problems we've had is on multifamily developments. That was one of the ones we wanted to look into as well with this Grow Smart workshop. But we have a bunch of developments that these are more of like an HOA based development. So the entire HOA that's managing this complex is using culinary water instead of using secondary water. When we jump into the rates in just a minute, I'll show you kind of the issues we've had with that. But again, through public outreach last year, we really targeted some of these with the HOA managing companies and with the developers themselves, and have had the majority of these switch back to the secondary water. So it's been a great project. We've been able to make a lot of headway with just public outreach. So if you want to jump back to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So again, we'll just focus on, if you want to scroll down, we'll get the multi-unit complexes. So one of the problems we've had with multi-unit complexes is we look to try to adjust a rate for just individual complexes that were approved with the understanding that they would use secondary water. Is when we built this rate, it's very big. So the tier structures are large. Every 500,000 gallons is when you jump a different tier. And the reason for that is you've got Four Seasons, which is on this structure, has just shy of 400 units in it. But then you've also got like a development that just got passed on 400 East, which is in the same category, but they only have 6 units. And so it's such a range of size. It's really hard to nail that down. And so we think on the multifamily, if we continue to work with those HOA management companies, we're getting a lot of headway on that. And we're starting to see that they want to use the secondary water because it's just so much cheaper for them. And so I wouldn't think right now we can do much with the multifamily developments. I think we need to focus on just single family. So if you scroll up back to the rates, this top structure is our current rate structure for single family homes in North Logan City. You guys are probably pretty familiar with how this works. On the right hand side, you can just see where it says meter size 3/4 down the line to 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, all the way on the far right. So how your meter or how your water rate is based is you have a meter rate. That's your base rate, is just the size of your water meter. So a 3/4 inch water meter or 1 inch water meter is $12.15. That's your monthly base rate. And then on the side, you'll have per 1,000 gallons of use. So the first 10,000 gallons are billed at $1.57 per 1,000 gallons of water used. And then as the tiers climb, so do the pricing of those tiers in the structure. So just if you haven't seen this before, that's kind of a rundown on how that works. This spreadsheet we put together, if you go up to the total water usage where it says 15, that's in thousands of gallons. So you guys all have access to this. If you want to play with it and see kind of where it jumps around, you can see the impacts it has.
So that would be assuming 15,000 gallons
Of water
in 1
used.
month.
Yep, in 1 month. So that's just 1 month.
Have we always charged the same rates for institutional and single family dwellings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And the institutional is, again, we would just focus the secondary rate on single family, because the institutional, again, it's a giant bear to tackle right now. And that's the one where we can really reach out and talk to people. Like USU has made huge strides in going to secondary water. So they've made a lot of difference. Yeah, so back to this. So internal usage of a home is around 3,000 to 6,000 gallons a month. You can get up to 8 to 9 depending on your family size. And that's internal water usage. So like showering, drinking water, bathing, washing your clothes, dishwashers, stuff like that. So anything outside of that 10,000 gallon range, when you go above that, that's when we really start to see people using water on the exterior of their homes. So that's kind of why those structures line out like that. So if you want to scroll down, so one of the thoughts that we came up with during the Grow Smart
Water
workshop,
Smart.
Water Smart workshop, whatever it is, I don't know what it is. It was a long time ago. Was to use a rate that would help people if they started to go above that 10,000, then you know that that water is going on the exterior of their home. And so at that point, we could start to show that, yeah, you're going to start to spend a little bit more money so that we can encourage them to go back to the secondary water that they need to use. So these are just some sample rates. We do have another rate structure that is currently approved that is for, what was that one called? Water conservation water rate, right?
Yeah, it's for subdivisions that are approved, just period, where they have no option to go a secondary. But yet knowing that if they want to build, they still have the option to build.
Yeah.
But they have to basically xeriscape the heck out of their lawn.
Yes.
Emily, I hear you gasp. This is only for people who, if they
No, I
want
just-
to say no
who-
thanks to
I-
secondary.
I
like,
actually
it's
really
meant
like
to
it.
be,
Oh,
yeah.
no, here's
And
the
to
thing
go
though, I
back-
still think we're gonna find somebody who is like, I'll pay it.
So to go back to that rate that Alan mentioned.
Oh, you
This is-
will have people that will pay it.
Yeah, but this is half of that rate. So what we did is the $1.57, that's your current rate. So you have no penalty if you're using the standard amount
The same
inside of your
amount,
home.
Yeah,
But if you go to that rate that is the water conservation rate, if you were to do that, the tiers are double this one. And so it's a significant. jump.
So this is
Nobody's on that rate yet. So that
So-
was just if you developed something and you knew you had no secondary water and you had to rely on culinary water use. We've had a couple subdivisions come in, but nothing ever secondary. Yeah,
And they
there's a
found,
couple.
they
concepts,
found
but-
options for secondary.
Yeah.
Is what happened.
Yep.
Just for the shoulder seasons or for the?
No, we'll get to that one. That's the next item. That's the seasonal. That's the shoulder season.
I like it. I'm just trying to imagine a scenario where I'd be really okay paying that amount for water, but
So,
I mean. I
yeah,
guess
so
I'm
right
just a
now,
cheapskate, like,
I might just, I will just emphasize this. When Jordan and those guys go out and they monitor people in the summer that are abusing kind of water. They'll water every day of the week when we're on 2 and 3 days a week, just to make sure we're getting by in the summer. And they'll go out and monitor, and the individuals say, it's America, I can water whenever I want, not realizing it's a finite resource. Like, we do not have the amount of water to give everyone that amount of water or to put it on their landscaping. So when you look at these rates, they may seem steep. I was actually wondering if we could go much higher. The reason I say that is because right now where you've got them, people will still probably pay. That's not what we want. We want them
Right.
to not pay and not use.
we don't want
culinary
the
on
money,
their-
we want the
We
water.
want.
But,
I want the water to be.
right.
we want the
I also don't
second-
wanna. I feel like you're gonna run into a lot of single family homes who maybe don't realize that they have. And so it's like, it's almost like maybe I want this to start for the people who are like figuring out that they actually have secondary and can't go on it. So it's sort of a, hey, just FYI, did you know that you actually have secondary water? Punish you a
Right.
little bit and then maybe go more extreme if people are really not responding to this, like.
Yeah,
that an
so it
option?
could be total, we can roll this out however we want to. One of the things to look at though, you see these numbers on the right where it says totals at 268.9. So you've got to think of this on how much water you would actually use on your lawn. So the first 10,000, you receive 0 penalty. Once you go into 10 to 20, at 15,000 gallons, you're only up $8 total for the whole month. So, but if you go higher than that, so if you're above 20, then it really starts to add up.
So Jordan, I can see a scenario where someone would do this if they're in a subdivision that has secondary access, but there's severe drought conditions where the secondary water gets shut off in August.
Yes.
Then their choices are either convert to culinary or to these rates, or let their lawn die or
Correct.
their exterior landscaping die. That's what we're looking at here?
Yes,
right?
because if you look at those situations, which we've had recently in the last few years, so when those canals start to shut down, our water system's having equal problems.
Yeah,
We're
right.
struggling to produce water.
We're
So
not the rescue boat.
these,
Right.
yes, our rescue boat's already sinking. And so when they start to pile in, we have a bigger effect across the board to everyone else. And we're starting to talk about drinking water issues versus just watering your lawn issues.
Yep.
If everyone jumped over. So that's what we try
That's
to
the only scenario I can see where these rates would even be
Yes,
applicable. though.
and that's what we want to prevent from happening, because if that happens, we also have culinary water restrictions, which mirror the canal company systems. And so we would actually probably have the same water restrictions in effect. Buzzy knows he's on
Yeah.
the bench and culinary water use. We would go to the 2 day a week, 1 day a week situations.
Or
which we've
0,
Done in the
If
past.
we have to
Yeah.
get there. Haven't gotten there yet to 0.
No, we haven't. We've got to 2 days a week and that's what the
Yeah.
canal's got. to as well.
I know,
I
and
could
can we
see-
just mention that my lawn was brown in 2022 and it came back like,
Hold on, that's
Yeah.
because you have construction going on.
no, that was before it. How dare
I've watered
you?
my lawn 2 days a week for 10 years and it's never
Right.
been a problem.
Yeah, one thing that Emily pointed out though is key. I need to point out, I would like this to be very strict because I see those individuals who have said this before, just paying the fee.
Hmm.
And in the past, we've always just said, we don't want your money. We
Yeah,
just want
that's
you
the
to
problem.
not
Well, do
use
we-
as much water, so we're all doing okay. But how Emily pointed out, when you roll out something like this, there's a public education component, so you'd send out information.
Mhm.
You'd give them 1 or 2 months to get everything in order. So if they have to switch over, it's a simple switch, but they might have to get a filter or something else if they don't have that already in place and connect into that secondary system that is provided to them by the subdivision.
How, could you give us an estimate of how many people would be in that category where they're kind of innocent homeowners that don't know?
So I would probably lump those that don't know and those that do know and are using wrongly together just because of the numbers. They're pretty small. So
Okay.
we're talking at about a very small percentage.
Like dozens?
Yeah, dozens
Okay.
max.
Okay.
So
Mm.
I'm wondering,
It's
like
to prevent
Alan's,
the problem from happening.
Well, maybe.
I'm just wondering
Maybe a
if
higher fee
we-
would get people.
That's what I'm
notice
wondering,
quicker.
and then do a slower ramp up, like you
Yeah.
give them a
Mhm.
grace period, but have a maybe more stringent fee to really penalize that or to disincentivize
Mhm.
the switch over.
So if you want to put one in, you can put it in on here or do it on your own computers. Let's take Emily's, I'm just gonna use your house for an example.
What?
You
Why?
probably, in this summer month, when you water your lawn, you're around 20 to 30,000 gallons of water.
Yes.
So if you want to type that into that, you'll see what that would equate to.
I think it's
Which
all
is it?
shared spreadsheets, so we're all
Yeah.
gonna.
I
see.
just did that.
Oh,
There we
Perfect.
go.
I don't, it's not secret. I'm just trying to say
Ooh.
that Emily, for example, because that's
Not,
what her
what,
lot would be. And so that would be,
oh, boy.
you would see 113.
And what was it before?
36, if you look up above. Oh, sorry, scroll up and
That'll
put it in the
definitely
top
be
one
your
too.
take.
Yeah, I was gonna
So-
say,
What I'm saying.
that fee-
Otherwise, it was 32, and then this one, if she uses, wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot. So
So
it is
it-
pretty.
It
Okay,
does start
it's
to pile up
noticeable.
when you start to use it exteriorly. That's why if you look at the tiers 10 to 20 is kind of a grace period to say,
Okay.
hey,
Okay,
maybe I filled up my hot tub. Maybe my kids did a slip and slide. Big whoop. But when you're over 20, you're watering your lawn.
Okay.
We do
that
have
makes sense.
people
It
in
was
certain
actually
parts
the
of the
same
city though, spending $700-800 a month to
Yeah.
in excess of 1,000 per month that say, yeah, that's fine.
man, have they considered
So
donating?
those
look at
ones.
that.
We don't like
though.
that.
I know.
Neither
What?
does the- But those are,
So
those are
much.
not people who have secondary water necessarily as an option.
No, I'm
That's
just
people in my
saying-
neighborhood.
I'm just saying
100?
individuals on this, it might be the same thing.
Cause they're, I mean, they're
Those are
not, it's not
single-
abnormal. No,
Really?
Emily, in my neighborhood, there
Yeah,
are a
same
lot
in my
of people
neighborhood.
who,
And they don't care.
How
I'm gonna do
difficult
totally.
would it be to put
I
as
mean-
part of educational plan in our bill that we get every month? You could run as part of that bill what it's gonna be at this rate under the proposed new fee. And then they
we could
can
probably-
see.
So we'd
develop.
probably do it 2 or 3 different ways. We could send it citywide in a bill that would go to everyone. But the easier option would just be to do parliament or individual letters.
Yeah.
Where we would
But-
just
but we
circle.
get a
the-
bill every month anyway.
It's hard sectioning out those bills though for individuals.
cause like
So-
Mahogany
I'm not saying
Ridge.
that everybody should
Educating.
get-
But the problem is like, if you send that to Mahogany Ridge, they'll be like, what, like, you may get people who are up in arms, even though it's
Yeah.
inapplicable.
Yeah.
And
Cause
my
they don't have
neighborhood
the
doesn't
option
have
for
the access.
secondary.
So we wouldn't apply for this.
Yeah.
Like, no. one
No,
might-
this wouldn't apply
Because
where
we
there's
don't-
no.
We don't have access to secondary water, so
You
we
couldn't
would
borrow
not
it.
be. in
But we
that.
could do that and we could target those individual areas that this would apply to. Yes,
Like
we could
via
do that.
parliament.
Via parliament, via letters, via,
Yeah, we'd probably do
bills,
parliament
we could do
and
a bunch.
letters, probably both to each individual.
yeah.
And
There's
there's a way we
also-
can pull their like, this is what you used last year on
Yes, that's what we
culinary.
talked about.
I mean, that, to me, I feel like that would make the
Yeah.
biggest thing, because if you show me the bill being like, instead of spending 36, you're gonna be spending 149.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm like, so how do I change to secondary?
Because since this is the smaller number currently, like we don't have a lot of people that would apply to, we could do a lot of education, outreach, email, like we
Mhm.
can help.
Cause you can target them.
Yes, it's a very small group that we are very aware of who they
I
are.
actually love this, when you illustrate it this way, that you give them a grace period or a grace amount to 10,000, and even 10 to 20 is not, it's not crazy punitive.
Right.
But it's like, I like that, cause it's like, no matter what, 20,000 and above, you're using it for exterior.
And we do have a leak forgiveness program in the city, so always remember that if there was a leak on your lot and this climbed up and you're in a very high number, we do have a leak forgiveness program. So it was not going after those individuals where that happens.
Yeah, where there's
Just people.
And
an
I
abnormality.
do need to emphasize how much Jordan's crew goes out, whether it's these conservation measures or 2 days a week, or it's seasonal, how much they go out and they literally sit down with residents and they go through and they say, well, let's see if you have a leaky valve. Let's see what's going on. We will help you. And they literally help hundreds of residents every year.
And businesses as well.
And businesses to
We
try
meet
and
with a lot of
figure out
people.
solutions to their water. Again, our goal is conservative water use. It's not how much
It's not
money can we get.
penalty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with that,
Much rather.
It
catch
doesn't
the
really
fish.
help us getting more money. Like a
Right.
reservoir is $5 million. So getting $1,000 is not helping us at that point.
Is there an issue, because we're talking about an intentionally punitive rate, that we create a problem with charging fees and excessive fees issue?
That's a very good question. If anyone ever does call us out, though, we can always sit down and we can calculate how much North Logan is spending on water compared to any other. See, what you're talking about is the same with utility rates or impact fees or anything that we do, where we have to be able to justify what we're
Yes.
charging.
That's what
and
I'm talking
I don't know
about.
that I would call it a punitive rate because it's still tiered. So if I use 60,000 gallons, the first 10,000 are at the 10,000 rate, the next 10,000 are at that 10 to 20 rate and so on, right? So I don't know if it's really punitive.
If I were
because
getting a
there's-
bill for that, you may have someone argue it's punitive, and we're intentionally making it more expensive than the earlier water. So I think it's
Yeah.
designed to stop a use.
But we're
I-
still not covering
I
our
think-
costs
Oh,
even.
punitive,
I think we'd be okay if you look at other cities. I will just put it, for example, another city in Box Elder County. Their second and third tiers are up to $10.
Mhm.
Like you're looking at $3 and $8. That's their second tier in those cities.
The state
Well-
doesn't regulate that at all.
The state mandates that we have tiers.
And they don't care what the maximum.
Well,
city
but
has
Mark
to
bring up a
costs.
point. If we go excessive, yeah, there's gonna be some questions about what we need to do to justify those costs, but we can always justify.
We can
based
do,
off
as long
our
as we can.
capital.
do
I,
it,
I
that's
also
what
think
I'm
it's
saying.
different if you were providing a service that there's no alternative for, you know,
Yes.
so it's like, if this were the only access to water, like if you did this in Mahogany Ridge, for instance, I think you could make that argument, but I think we're just saying this is the only way to have teeth when we approve a subdivision and we say, look, we don't have the culinary water for this subdivision. So yes, you can go ahead on your promise that you stick with secondary. And I think this is really the only method that the city has to hold developers to that and homeowners.
Right.
So, this is just a discussion.
workshop, yep.
I think you've done a phenomenal job at really thinking through these.
yes.
Yeah, and read through them, look through them. Please let me know if you have feedback, questions, comments. This is not new to us, so we're happy to help. We have more information than we can handle, so
This is great feedback, though.
yeah, these are all very beneficial.
So
And just in the back of your minds, just remember, when we go out for like grants, put in 10 million gallons of water.
Buzzie's fired.
Oh, that same name, that's different.
It's in units of thousands.
Yeah, it's in 1,000 gallons units, so one is 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, we'll go to it.
No, I'm
just
sorry.
saying-
What were
No,
you
you're-
just saying?
I was just gonna say, just so you know, and maybe it's something I can send out to you guys as well, like, when you look at our current average water bill per individual, if we take the whole city and look at the average dollar for the entire season, 12-month look back, it's around $52 is the average monthly water bill. According to the state of Utah Division of Drinking Water, we should be at 72. So our water, it does seem expensive, but we're actually still quite a bit cheaper.
And is that just residential or is that,
Residential,
okay,
and that's actually all of our water system in one big look.
so that's
back.
residential and commercial and industrial all rolled in a ball.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get far off topic, and Jordan just probably opened up a can of worms.
We'll
in the-
glaze over that.
In the general plan workshop that came up, we went through several items and people were supportive, very supportive. They always are very supportive of trails, and you go through different things. But they had concerns about utility rates. And we should always be very cognizant that these are utility rates. These affect every resident and commercial business throughout the community. But what's ironic is as you sit down and you analyze North Logan versus about every other community in the valley, your monthly utility bill, as you analyze it, sewer in North Logan, we used to be relatively high. We had to be with the wastewater treatment plant, and we had to get caught up. We were actually in debt to Logan about 7 years ago, and we dug our way out of debt. And that's just actually paying for those rates. And other cities have since caught up and surpassed us. But sewer, we were relatively high. Every other area that you look through, including garbage, we are lower than every other city. There are a couple exceptions to that. If you water a lot on your lawn, we will be higher than a lot of cities. If you water a medium amount or a very small amount, we are much less than every other city. One of those factors being that our base rate over here, right here, our base rate is about half of most of the other cities in the valley. As you look through those base rates.
Which we want for like people who have no income or.
Correct. So the mayor brought up a really good point. The reason that we've headed that way and the council's headed that way in the past, and as we've looked at this, is a lot of other cities, they crank up their base rate because it's automatic money in their opinion. As I've talked with the other cities, it's just automatic money that they get every month, whether someone's used water or not. We didn't feel that was fair. You're kind of punishing people for conserving water at that point. And so we went the opposite direction. And that was, we'll increase the amount per 1,000 gallon, but lower the base rate. So if people are conserving water, they will pay less in North Logan City than the surrounding communities. Unless you start using very high amounts.
So I was gonna ask with the high users, the next table down, the multi-family units, I guess I'm a little surprised that those tiers being such large tiers, because like you say, you use Four Seasons as the example, 400 units, but the landscape, even though they have 400 units, they don't have that much landscaping considering that there's 400 units there compared to like a 6 unit. But so I guess maybe explain to us a little more why these tiers are the size they are. And then secondly, a subdivision like Aspen Meadows where all the houses are on a single water meter, do they fall into something like this too?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, I don't know if you want to dive into it, we can. It's a little bit of a project, but
Okay.
Is that something that you're continuing to look at?
yeah,
Like
we
we're
look at
just
it constantly.
tackling this.
So this water rate, it was established based upon water rate, how water was used in the summer versus winter. And then we go through an average to see how much you use for culinary indoor, how much that breaks down per door, per unit, and how much landscaping they have for that unit. It's very hard to just identify 3 or 4 and say that you can use this much, this much, this much, because we have to have a tier that applies to all of them. So if you have a single meter, you have all of this. So we did this 6 years ago, 5 years ago. when
5
we
years
first
ago.
Implemented this. And yeah, we went through gallons of research. Like so anyway, it's trying to be as fair as possible and equitable to each of them.
So,
Good pun.
Good pun.
That was a good pun.
Can-
Sorry, I just.
Millions.
Those are
Millions.
bound.
so I will
bound.
go one step
Yeah.
farther on that. Just so
did.
people know how extreme these rates are, as far as how comprehensive they are. We had to do this out of necessity. Our supply and our production and our storage of water has not kept up with growth. It's partially my fault. There was a previous public works director that was awful. That was me. And going through this whole thing, take that factor that we were growing very fast. On average, the users in North Logan use more water than about every other city, or they used to, across the state. The users in North Logan were using a very high amount per capita. Compound that with increasing demands from the state. They changed our storage requirements. They keep going up and up and up, even higher. You take all of those factors into account. We took all the data, and Jordan's crew took everything. They analyzed everything, and they came through and they probably did 3 iterations before they got to something that felt right with the tiers. And around that same time, the state was mandating that cities put in tiers. I will just tell you right now, most other cities put in like 2 or 3 tiers, and those tiers were 0 to 100,000 this rate, 100,000 to 500,000 this rate. And they just pulled numbers out of thin air and they had nothing. There was no effect to those tiers. These guys went through and they literally picked set points where people were near that. And if they lowered it by just a 1 day a week, all of a sudden they would drop a tier and they could drop in their payment. Like that's how those tiers are set up. So the residential tiers are pretty fine tuned. These tiers are obviously much more difficult to fine tune. But I think you guys bring up a good question. One, while they are the most comprehensive tiered rates in the entire state, bar none, like no one else has even come close to basing it off of gallons usage per usage, based it off their actual data. I don't know of another city that's ever done that. However, they probably still need to be fine tuned every few years. We probably need to look at that.
Well, and I think that's also comforting that, you know, if we proceed with the secondary, you know, the one that we were talking about before, we can adjust that, you know, like I think that's probably necessary, right? Like as we see this, we can see what the results are, and then we can always revisit this in the event that it's not accomplishing what we need to, you know, are we penalizing people who are innocent, you know, or are we not disincentivizing it enough? So
Right.
I feel confident enough in this that it's a good start, and let's see how that plays out. And then, you know, if we need to adjust it, then we'll count on you to bring that before us again.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just really happy to see how effective this would be. Like, I really hope it would be. And
Yeah.
that we can go forward. It's also nice to see that Water Smart conference that we went to, by the way, Scott, you're gonna actually have to tell us what the conference was called.
It's
because
Growing Water Smart. I looked it up.
I was like, man, I feel so dumb. I can't actually remember the name of that conference. Anyway, we got all the words together. We'll just put them, I'm just really nice to see that like that was as effective as I thought
was
it
good,
was.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, let's move on
Thanks,
to thank you,
no.
Jordan.
Yeah, I know.
But
Don't leave.
it's premature. So let's talk about the seasonal culinary
This
tiered
one's a
water
lot
rates.
easier, and this one has cool graphs. So click on info for seasonal rates. So what we talked about again, it's back to the GWS. We tried to figure out in those shoulder seasons, this is kind of what Mark brought up, in the spring and fall when people switch off of culinary water and start to use, or sorry, off of secondary water, start to use culinary water. We wanted to see, like we see it around, like when you drive around, you'll see somebody with their sprinklers on, you're like, hey, what are they doing watering their lawn in April? So we tried to pull together some information to see how effective this rate would be if we were to implement this structure. If you can can you center all those graphs? Let's see how good you can do with your computer skills. Okay. So these are in millions of gallons of water used per month. So you can kind of see in 2021, we were pretty high. This is the shoulder season right here in May and in October. So you can see we spike us, come back down. So 2021 is when we really started to reach out. We started to do a lot more education. And so in 2022, you can see our numbers are going down. And in 2023, our numbers dropped significantly. So if you look up at that top left graph, those shoulder seasons are shrinking significantly right now. So
then maybe we don't need to do that.
through public outreach, education, newsletters, water bit, like
That's
putting it in
great.
the bills.
Could that have just
We're
been that
seeing
we
it
had a
coming
really
into-
wet spring and a pretty deep?
So we thought that, but if you go back, 2022 was wet, 21 was significantly dry, and there's not enough in May and early May because the water turns on
Okay.
mid-May. So we're talking April into May to really make a big difference on putting in a rate where we think that public education would do more than a rate would right now. And that could change as, in the future, but we feel that as we've gone through a bunch of this information that public outreach is probably the best tool for this.
Instead of rates.
Yep.
Okay.
Carrot and
I love it.
stick. I think that we can keep just education. People are
Could-
aware.
there's too much
Those
snow.
couple years of drought, I think it brought a lot of water use to people's attention. And they're a lot more concerned with making sure we have water.
So tell me this, what about people who are on secondary water? It shuts off October 1st, they switch to culinary.
Yep.
Is it the rates that we previously discussed?
So they would just be in that rate all year.
Okay,
The shoulder season where they are doing the switch, it's not an impact. We're not seeing a huge impact. I shouldn't say we should allow that. We're just saying that it's not as impactful
but,
as we anticipate.
but they will be paying that same, like, there's that,
No.
they will not.
Only if your subdivision was approved with the understanding that they had to use secondary, then that rate would be applied to them
Year
all
round.
year, every year. Yeah, it wouldn't just be in those windows.
Okay.
So we wanted to look at the city as a whole to just see if all of the bench above 16th was turning on in April or turning or running into November. And that was our concern, was seeing, hey, maybe we're wasting a lot of water in April and November. And it turns out we're really not, which is good, which is
Yeah.
great. We did a little in 2021. In 2020, we had the same graph as 2021, but we've seen it starting to really flatten out. And we've done a lot of education in the newsletter. I think every year it goes out in the bill now. Please don't turn your water on until Memorial Day. And so it's making a difference.
Okay.
It really does go-
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say that it's really, people just don't realize. I think a lot of people just have it set it and forget it like their clock. And they'll start watering in April when your grass is dormant, like it's not doing anything. Maybe in a few spots that get a lot of sun, you might have some grass coming out of dormancy, but that's it. Case in point, so a few years ago, my lawn was doing great in September, and I have secondary, and as I was watering, I noticed that I had a few drier spots, but really nothing. And I was just like, well, I should be fine. And so I really didn't ramp up watering. And then by the end of the year, obviously canal water is shut off by early October, mid-October. What I didn't know is my neighbor was installing his irrigation system, and he had shut off my irrigation system from like 3/4 way through August, all the way through the end of the year. I hadn't watered once. And so just to kind of go to this point, or to exemplify why it's really just something you do not want to water excessively in September, October. Your grass is already going into dormancy. Just don't water to excess. And so just public education might be the best method right then.
Yeah, we think that that's been the most impactful. It's kind of been funny over the years as we put these rates in, we've seen people drop, but it really, we think that public education goes almost further than rate structures. So
Okay.
we're gonna focus on that.
I have amazing literature for you, and a great contact person that made it really pointed to us showed us, here's how much your watering needs to happen this
Yep.
month. And then you're actually making your roots stronger by following this simple little
Yeah.
schedule. And then just recently went back and she had another conference that I went to, and she actually showed dried Salt Lake. And then showed what happened back when they were excavating King Tut's tomb. And the same type of bacteria made those people that excavated his tomb die. She says, this is what's happening in Salt Lake. So all I'm thinking about is my kids live down there, and you don't want that to be blowing out. So a lot of people make a joke about it, but I'm saying that this is actually like scientifically
Mhm.
serious for us.
Yeah. Joni, if you do have some, maybe send it my direction,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
because we
Yeah.
do, I think we're always looking for social media posts, and
We-
especially as water season kind of ramps up, so.
I have the mayor's message for March, so thank you.
There you go, Buzzy.
Yeah.
That's the one.
He
Yeah,
wrote
I
it
got
right
some
now.
thoughts. Yeah.
We need to
Nailed it.
make
So
it now.
one other
Right, I
thing,
gotta get it here now.
Buzzy, remember in your post, another reason that it's really important not to water with culinary water in March or April.
Yeah.
Is because it affects your sewer rates for the entire year. Your sewer rates are based off of your winter water usage. So if you're watering on your lawn, you literally just kicked up your sewer bill for the next 6 months.
Okay, that's good to know, Alan. I'll take a crack at it this week, and then maybe you can add any data. Usually rewrite mine anyway, so.
Out of necessity.
But yeah.
Alan,
Okay.
before you get off that, Jordan, like you pointed out that May was significantly lower in 22 than 21. September is actually higher in 22 than 21. So I guess that leads me to believe it might be more the
So
wetness of the
September
month.
is a peak water use month. So our billing cycle is the 15th to the 15th. So September takes in
August 15th.
August 15th to September 15th. And September is one of our biggest water use months across the board. That's not one that we would target as a shoulder season. It would be the end of October into November as a shoulder, because that is a very high use month.
Okay,
And if you go up to 23, last year, you can see that they start to flatten out. Yes, it was a little, I don't know if it was that much cooler last year, but the trends are starting to even out a little bit.
okay.
Yes.
That's crazy. Okay, let's move on to our update on water capital improvement projects.
I'm here.
Jordan.
That's fast. Just wanted to update you on a couple things that we're working on. As Alan mentioned, our water master plan is coming in this week. So we'll send that out for you guys to review. Please let me know if you have questions. It's a giant document. The shoulder season education, like Buzzy with your newsletter. This is one of the things we'll reach out with as well. USU has tons of resources. They have an actual on their website tells you how much you should be watering each week. And it's great. So we are also working with the same company, the same engineering firm that did our water master plan, which is Sunrise, to help us to go out with BOR money and DEQ money for applications for treatment plant, contact tank, 4 million gallon tank, distribution lines, etc. Plant updates, working with Hazen Engineering to get our treatment plant back up to the Division of Drinking Water Standards, and lead copper is still going on strong. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thanks, Jordan, for all of this. I know it's a ton of work. Alan, you want to give updates on the Civic Center?
Yeah, I'll go through those pretty quick. It's getting exciting with the city office. It's nearing completion in April. There's a rough date in there. We'll have to set a ribbon cutting date. I think it might get changed. I think the original date was May 17th, but we'll probably just set a date firmly near that date and work with the city council so you can all be there for that ribbon cutting or grand opening of the city offices. But those are the kind of the remaining items coming up for the city office. And then the community center, it's basically just finalizing the designs and going out to bid on that. As you know, we've finalized the bonds for that. After 2 years, we finally finalized those bonds, which is fantastic. And so we'll go out to bid and see how those numbers come back on the community center coming up in the coming weeks. We'll probably break ground on that though this summer. We'd have to start breaking out on that, and because our bond actually kicks in, we have to start making payments at that time.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's do reports. Chief, you want to go first? Chief Goodrich.
Awesome. Thank you. First off, it was wonderful to be able to recognize Officer Nelson tonight. He's been very busy. He's fairly new, been off of field training for a month or two now. So he's doing great and we're proud to have him. Wanted to remind the council about our ICAC presentation tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity to learn some more things there on that.
Did we invite the whole council for that?
We did.
Tomorrow night?
Yep.
But it's at the police.
It's just at the police department. We're here.
Okay. Just trying to think we're gonna have enough room, do we?
I was
should-
wondering the
we
same
should.
because the Hyde Park City Council will be there too, right?
Yep.
So
To make Brian.
It-
sit
It'll
in
be
it.
full house, but we'll
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
make accommodations
Yeah.
for it. So it'll be a good night. I wanted to provide an update since the last meeting. We were started to look into first off our website change from the .org to the .gov. We have gone down that road. I've put in the request for nppdut.gov on that. That's available. And now just waiting for that verification process from the federal government it takes to do that, but we are moving on that. Also, we've been working with Scott on the address change for the police department. It really doesn't matter. It seems like what number we pick, there are multiple numbers for that north coordinate on there. We're looking at 2555 north and 600 east on that. There are multiple of that one as well, but like I said, that seems to be the problem we're going to have either way there. So we're starting to look at that and what that's going to take to make that happen. But we are starting to move in that direction. on there. I also wanted to provide an update on the burglaries that have been happening recently in Hyde Park area. In the middle of January and continuing on, they've had a rash of burglaries. As a department, we've made an arrest for 3 this last weekend on that, and we're continuing to tie those together with the evidence that we've recovered. But our guys have put a lot of time, a lot of effort into getting warrants and interviewing people on that. And so we feel very pleased that we're able to make those connections and make those arrests on that.
Did you say those are home burglaries or?
There are, yeah,
Okay.
they were home burglaries. So these are ones that are hard to prevent. We tend to react to those as quickly as what we can, but we're always on the catch-up end of those type of incidents. And so the fact that we were able to do it fairly quickly and track down those suspects and make those arrests has been good for us. So like I said, we're moving quickly on those things. And then as far as, like I said, we've had a really busy week. Most of our week was tied up in those arrests. Despite that, though, we did have 2 DUI arrests this week. So far for the department, that brings us up to 9 DUI arrests for since the beginning of the year on that, which is fantastic. We had 79 calls in addition to that this week and 122 traffic stops on top of that. So like I said, we're busy. Our guys are out there. They're doing great things like Officer Nelson's work and then the work of our detectives on these cases here. So again, thank you. We appreciate you and look forward to tomorrow.
Okay,
So,
thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council and Council, sorry. Actually, I think Alan did a pretty good job, updating us. Probably the biggest thing I wanted to throw out there, make sure February 28th on everyone's calendar. That'll be the noon lunch with, with the council and the mayor. And I'll be working on with Alan and Jelaine, our administrative secretary, on maybe kind of organizing that day. The completion date for the new station should be just fine. I checked in today, so should be super nice by then. It'll be still nice and clean, and or they'll still be cleaning, so should work out well. And then if you also wanted to swing by Station 120, to meet the crews that are here on duty that day working within the city, that might be fun too. So yeah, so plan on that. We're planning on noon that day. And then that very next day is when the ISO survey will be taking place. So we should have all the data in by that. So we're super hopeful. Maybe for those that missed the last meeting, currently North Logan sits at an ISO 5. We're super optimistic we should push that to a 2, if not a 1. We're really shooting for ISO 1, which there's very few fire departments in the state that are that level. So things are looking good for that.
Great.
And then you saw, pretty busy quarter. Jelaine's been on vacation. I don't think the report's out for January. I had just kind of looked at the unit runs quickly. Hopefully everyone saw those last year. I think last quarter, October through December, looked like 398 unit runs for EMS and fire. So
She did get that sent out.
oh, awesome. Perfect. So we'll hopefully get the January numbers out quickly, but growing city and plenty going on for sure. So yeah, look forward to a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Should be fun.
Okay, thanks, Chief. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Jordan, have you said enough? Okay.
Alan, on your list of upcoming events, do you have the ULUI Utah Land Use Institute Conference for the spring? This is March 22nd of 24. I think there's, I got the league in there. So we're kind of coming up on conference season. This is another opportunity if anybody wants to get a quick recap on the legislative session and local land use changes. It's an online from 8 till like 4 conference where they have an in-person down in St. George. If you wanted to do a quick getaway, it's on Friday, the 22nd. Online registration's cheap. So if you'd like to do that instead of maybe the longer league, mid-year conference, that's an opportunity to maybe truncate some of the information you get at the league conference if you want to.
Are you going to
Sure.
that, Scott?
The league, I'm not. So
Okay.
the league I'll skip. I'm gonna go to the APA spring conference, which has a lot of sessions that you find at the league mid-year, but I will probably do this ULUI conference because it's a little bit more consolidated and I can do it.
Is
from
that
my
like
office.
legislative focused?
Yeah, so they're gonna talk about what did the 24 legislative session do for housing and development? What happens with Utah's quality of life with a Utah housing, with the housing cost increases. Talk about Governor Cox's starter homes project, benefits and burdens of development on local tax bases. So it's kind of just a smaller 1-day conference that'll talk a lot about housing, local policy, those types of things. So if you want to sign up for that, let me know. I'd be happy to get you registered, but you can do it from home or you can head down to St. George. Okay. I want to give a quick update on the general plan. So thank you to those who took the time to come out to the open house who were available to come. We had a really good attendance. We have had, well, I've been through general plan open houses with very low attendance. This was very well attended. Now, I will say it was not my favorite as far as organization and professionalism on the part of our consultant. It's something that we have had some frank conversations with our consultant about, and it's something that we know needs to do better. So keep your eyes on that. We'll be working with them to be a little bit more punctual and to have some more professionalism there. But looking ahead, March, April, May, we're looking to put together a couple of joint work sessions between the Planning Commission and the City Council. We want to make sure we have enough draft materials for you guys to chew on first and then come to those work sessions and kind of hash out some of these broader policy decisions. And then we'll go back to the drawing board and make some edits, and then we'll schedule another joint workshop down the line as well. So keep an eye open for some invites. Maybe we'll shoot some dates over, see who's most available on specific dates, and we'll try to get as much of you in that discussion as we can. We're also working on some formal surveys that will be going out for transportation, land use, parks and recreation, and a couple other topics. So we would like to send out the draft surveys, get some feedback, see if there's any questions you guys would like to add to those surveys or any specific information you'd like to glean from those topics. So we'll make those rounds, send those out, get your feedback, and then we'll formalize those and get those communicated out to the public and hopefully get some good responses. So that's kind of what we have coming down the pipeline on the general plan. If you have any questions, reach out, let me know. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
And thanks to everyone who could make it. I was out of town, but I think it's a really great sign, all of the community involvement that we've gotten. So. Okay, Scott Bennett, nothing. Alan?
Just a few of the upcoming events. I think we've gone over just about all of them. The only other one to bring up is probably just skills challenge for basketball, Easter egg hunt coming up on the 23rd. That's from 11 a.m. to 11:01 a.m. And then the mid-year conference. Just put that on your radar. If you are going to that mid-year conference for the Utah League down in St. George, you need to start letting myself or Scott know in the next couple weeks. So we can reach out and start getting hotels on the government rate. We always have to specify that.
Do we always do the Easter egg hunt the week before Easter?
We always do it 1 week before
okay.
Easter. And it's early this year. Easter is.
Yeah, Scott, I'm planning on going to the ULCT thing. Anyone else know for sure?
I know I can't this year.
I know I cannot also.
I'm going to be there as well, so you can mark me down.
Makes me sad. That's my favorite.
Fine, the women will cover it. Mark, do you know at this point?
Working on trying to get there. I
Okay.
would like to go.
So it sounds like 3 for sure's and a maybe.
I was going to tell you do or do not.
There is no try.
Right. Thank you.
That's super helpful.
Hey, Yoda, thank you.
I'm so short. Yeah. No, those are the only items I had on there. We'll talk about the other items after that and the other events coming in the coming weeks. But yeah, if you just want to get with us, and then we can start reserving lodging for that event.
Okay.
And register for the conference. I don't think registration's available yet, but in the coming weeks, we will want to do that.
Okay.
It fills up really fast.
Okay. All right. And anything from the council?
I just think you all should do a ride along with the police. It was really informative. They're great. So recommend reaching out and getting that set up.
Okay,
Thanks to the city for the birthday acknowledgement.
Thanks for
Just
being
getting older and
born,
older.
Buzzing.
all right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, motion by Emily, second by Buzzy, all in favor?
I.
Any opposed?